Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful creepy human being you, and welcome to today's true crime episode. I'm so happy that you are here. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this that we're forced to deal with on the day today, you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or BRATTERSTEIN, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing the absolutely tragic murder of 16-year-old Micaela Costanzo. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, sometimes 2 a week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. But before we get into the details of today's case, I first need to say a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Scatterslots, the top free-to-play casino app with 10,000 active users worldwide. So if you've been here a while, you would know that I have had a long-standing interest in slot games, but Scatterslots stands out from the others and is unique in its visuals, because if you've played slots before, you know a lot of them have the same thing, like the cherries and the diamonds and things like that. But Scatterslots is unique because it has this dark fantasy theme. Plus they have like 200 other different themed slot machines that you can choose from. So it can be unique in its vibe and in its looks, but it still has all of the things about playing slots that you love, like daily and hourly bonuses and huge jackpots. There are a few different ways to play too, from multiplayer tournament mode to clans where you can actually play with friends in a group, or even single player adventure mode, which is what I've been gravitating towards because you go on these missions and you get to make your way through like a map and then you unlock new slots. You can also play online or offline, which is great because you don't need service to play, and best of all, it's free. And in addition to being free, actually, when you sign up, you get a 12 million? Yeah, there's 6 zeros, 12 million bonus coins, so you can start binging immediately. Oh, and they're available on both iOS and Android. So if all of that sounds as good to you as it does to me, make sure to click the link in my description box or scan the QR code. It lets them know that I'm the one that sent you, and get your 12 million free coins to start playing Scatterslots today. And now I just want to say a big thank you to Scatterslots for partnering with me on today's video. It's partners like them that make it possible for me to put out videos as consistently as I do. And a big thank you to you guys for always being so supportive of all of my sponsors. You rock, don't ever change. Now, this is a video that was actually suggested to me by a subscriber, a member of the Brat Pack named Katie. Hi, Katie. Thank you, Katie. And this is a case from Katie's hometown. It's a case that's personal to her. I told you guys I wanted to start doing more hometown cases, and this is one from her area. This is one that is particularly close to her because Katie even went as far as participating in the searches for Mickey when she went missing. And Katie's brother even had his arm broken by the person who took Mickey's life. So there's a lot of connection here. This is a case that I had never heard of before. It took place in a small town in Nevada. Nevada. I don't know why my brain wants to say Nevada recently. I guess I'm just feeling fancy, but this took place in a small town in Nevada. And I'm surprised that I had never heard of it because it's a horrific case. It's one of those cases where the word horrific almost loses meaning when talking about this case, because what happened to Mickey is just so terrifying and so absolutely awful, and it seems to have happened for no reason. Like the real why, like why did this happen, still hasn't really been clarified. So the pointlessness of her murder weighs very heavy, at least on me. It's just one of those cases that once I heard about it, once I saw Mickey's face, once I started reading her story, I couldn't stop. I felt compelled to learn everything I could, and now I have read all of the things. So today I'm going to tell you all the information, give it to you in a concise story so that you don't have to go and, read a million articles like I did. I did the work so you do not have to. Now, at the end of this video, I want you to answer the question of the day. I want you to consider all the information I give you and then answer the question of the day. And that is this: what do you think was the motive for the murder of Mickie Costanzo? All right, now that I've said all those things that I need to say, come gather around and let me tell you the story of the senseless murder of 16-year-old Micaela Mickie Costanzo. All right, guys, to get started today, we're going to jump in our handy dandy time machine and we're going to head to 2011 to West Wendover, Nevada. And it's a little town that's about 400 miles away from Las Vegas. It's a town that's described as, quote, a tiny town in Nevada that has a little bit of everything, end quote. And it's on the border of Utah and Nevada. It's a tiny little place with a population of about 5,000 people sitting in an area that is literally only 7.5 square miles. Like, it's a very teeny tiny place that is actually set in another time zone. Wendover is on mountain time. instead of being on Pacific time like the rest of Nevada. I know the time zone doesn't particularly matter when it comes to this case, but something about it was just really, really interesting to me because I've never really heard of that, there being 2 different time zones in one state. I'm sure it happens more than my knowledge, but it just stuck out to me, so I thought I would mention it to you. But anyway, it was this place, West Wendover, that is the backdrop to a horrible crime. And it was on a cool day in March of 2011 when this man was on the edge of town, and he was either going to work or coming home from work. It hardly matters, but either way, he's driving, and he sees some weird tire tracks that catch his attention because they're in an area where like there shouldn't be tire tracks. So he sees them and they kind of give him a pause. You know, he feels compelled for whatever reason to follow these tracks. So he does just that. He follows the tracks. And as he does that, he comes to a disturbed sagebush. Okay. And he's like, huh. And he lifts the sagebush. And when he does that, he sees what appears to be blood and disturbed earth. So he calls the police. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably like, okay, so this guy's just driving along when all of a sudden he notices some unusual tire tracks, follows them, and then just happens to stumble upon an apparent crime scene. What's up? That sounds very suspicious. Yes, I know. But there was a little bit of a unique situation when it came to this man discovering this site. And that's because the entire town of West Wendover, it's just called Wendover. Why am I saying West Wendover? They were in West Wendover. Anyway, the entire town was on high alert because a 16-year-old girl named Micaela Rae Costanzo had been missing. And everybody had been searching everywhere for her. And this man had just stumbled upon her shallow grave. Micaela Rae Costanzo, who went by Mickey, so I'll probably be calling her Mickey through the entirety of this video, was born May 3rd, 1994, and she was the youngest of 3 daughters born to her mother Celia, having 2 older sisters, one named Delicia, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Dalicia, and she went by DJ, which will be much easier and what we will call her for this video, and another sister named Christina. Mickey's father's name was Theodore, and he went by Teddy, and Mickey also had 3 older half-sisters, I believe on her father's side, and they were named Jennifer, Kim, and Amy. Mickey's mother said that she was one of the lucky kids that was just born happy. She was always smiling, always super positive. She just walked through life a little differently and found the good in everything and everybody. Well, I say walked through life differently, which is kind of ironic because I read that Mickey was one of those stubborn babies who like refused to try to learn how to walk. Like she was like, absolutely not. That sounds like bullshit. And I feel that so hard because my baby right now, he was supposed to like be rolling from his back to his belly about a month ago, and he just started doing it yesterday because every time I put him down, he's like, this is nonsense. Pick me up and put me in my standing toy because I don't want to lay on my back right here. This is dumb. So I just felt that a little bit. Mickey's was just seen as like a good kid, right? She was good at school. She got good grades. She was good at writing. She would write short stories and poetry, and she was even working on writing a book. And she was also very active in extracurriculars, especially sports. She played basketball and she ran track. Micaela was in honor classes. Like she was super smart, and she was even the editor of her student newspaper. She was very mature beyond her years, like reliable, happy, likable, like super popular, beautiful, and happy. She wasn't one of those angsty or depressed teenagers. Everyone knew her too because again, this was a small town. And I mean, the school that she went to only even had like 300 kids. So basically everyone knew each other. So everyone knew Mickey. She was just seen as the kid who was doing the right thing, all the right things. She was seen as a parent's dream. Christina, her sister, even said like out of all of the daughters, out of all of the girls, Mickey was the one who was doing the right thing. Mickey was the one going down the right path. She was bright and beautiful and smart and popular. She, quote, had it all. And on top of all of that, she was also one of those kids who was super close with her family. She was super close with her mom, and she was super close with her sisters, DJ and Christina. They weren't even just like sisters. They were more like friends. Apparently Mickey and DJ were super, super close. Like they were considered best friends. They were seen as twins sometimes because they resembled each other, and they were each other's shadow. Like they had all the same friends, and if one wasn't with the other, they'd be like, oh, where's your shadow? You know, it was like that kind of relationship, which is usually something that I see, or at least that I've experienced, that happens when you're older, not generally when you are younger. So that is a bit of a unique and wonderful thing. And she was also super close with her eldest sister, Christina. Christina used to give her a ride home from school like every single day. Now, that brings us to the beginning of our story. It is a Thursday. It's March 3rd, 2011 on a cool winter afternoon. And Mickey has just finished track practice and is about to walk home. Now, generally, her sister Christina or Christina's husband would always give Mickey a ride home, but they weren't going to be in town right now. So Mickey decided that she would walk home. It was less than a mile. The mindset was, what could go wrong? Christina checked with her and was like, are you sure that you're okay, that you're going to have a way to get home, that everything's going to be fine? And Mickey was like, yeah, don't worry about me. I got it. I am good. Now, Mickey was a 16-year-old junior in high school, and as I illustrated already in this video, she was not seen as a typical teenage girl. She was seen as an exceptional teenage girl, somebody who was very reliable, and she was particularly good at checking in with her mother, basically all day long, telling her everything she was doing and what she was going to be doing, where she was going, when she was going to be, where, etc., etc. Like, she would give her mom a play-by-play of what she was doing. She'd be like, okay, I'm at practice. I'm done with practice. I'm changing. I'm heading home. Like, she was very, very on top of letting her mom know what was going on. So on that day, Mickey's mom, Celia, was working at a local casino, and she realized that Mickey hadn't texted her, hadn't let her know that she was on her way home, hadn't let her know that she had gotten home. And it was well after practice should have been over. The sun was already setting, and she hadn't heard from Mickey at all. And this was weird immediately for the girl who communicates to the point that communicates to a fault, is how her mother worded it, to just all of a sudden not be communicating at all. That didn't sit right with her right away. Mickey hadn't contacted her mother when practice was over, when she was changing, or when she was walking home. And this was completely out of character. So immediately her mom called her, and the phone rang and rang and rang before going straight to, well, not straight to voicemail, that's not right. Rang and rang and rang before going to voicemail. And this too was very strange. This is a teenage girl. She's 16 years old. Her phone is glued to her hand, so why would she not answer it? So her mother calls again, and this time it only rings one time before being sent to voicemail. Somebody had the phone and somebody sent her call to voicemail. So at this point, Mickey's mom's like, what the fuck? So she goes and she calls Mickey's older sister, Christina, the one who normally gave her a ride home. Christina was not in town. She was actually in Vegas, hundreds of miles away, watching some like NASCAR races, I believe. But Celia's mindset was, these two are very close. They talk all the time. Maybe she's heard from Mickey. Maybe she has some idea what's going on. So she calls Christina, and Christina's like, okay, no, I haven't heard from her, but don't panic. Maybe track ran late. Maybe she got busy doing something. I'm sure that everything is fine. Don't worry about it. And the two got off the phone, and then she too immediately called Mickey to see if maybe she'd answer for her. But again, the phone was not answered. Mama, in a panic, leaves work early. She knows that something is wrong. This doesn't feel right. Something is just not quite right. Her mom instincts are a-going. It's dark outside. There's no way she wouldn't have heard from her, and there's no way practice would be going on this late. But despite that, she does drive to the school. The very first place she goes, she drives to the school to see if maybe she is still there. But when she gets there, she finds that the school's totally empty. There's nobody there. Track practice has not run late into the night, which wouldn't have made sense anyway. So she's like, okay. And she heads for home. And the whole drive home, she just watches out her window and watches for her, hoping that she'll just see her walking down the road and have some sort of explanation, but she doesn't. She gets all the way home and she doesn't see Mickey. So she hopes that she'll walk inside the house and Mickey will just be there with some sort of, BS teenage excuse as to why she didn't have her phone, why her phone had died, why she wasn't answering. But when she got home, Mickey wasn't there either. Inside the house, it was only Mickey's sister, DJ. So her mom asks DJ at this point, like, where is Mickey? And at this point, she's a little bit frantic, and she's like, you know what? This isn't funny. Like, where is Mickey? And DJ's like, I'm just fucking sitting here doing my thing. I have no idea where Mickey is, but she can tell that this is serious, so she immediately goes out, and she starts looking for Mickey. And it's dark by this point, and it's cold, man. I don't know if you've ever lived in the desert or been to the desert. Desert nights are cold as fuck. And Mickey's out there without a jacket. It just doesn't make any sense. So she goes around, she looks, she doesn't find her. She calls all of Mickey's friends, she calls all of her friends, and nobody has heard from her. At this point, they're like, okay, we need to go. We need to alert the authorities. So they go and they report Mickey missing. But by the time they had reported her missing, the word had already gotten out that she was missing from the family making phone calls and things like that. So like 100 people had already gotten together and started searching for her before the police even did. The entire community of Wendover was in shock because, again, this was a small town. This was the type of place where things like this just did not happen. So when Mickey's family is talking to the cops and telling them what happened and telling them that she's missing, like when they go to report her missing, the cops tell them like, well, did you talk to her friends? Have you gone to places she frequents? Have you done this? Have you done that? And they're like, yes, bro, we've done our due diligence. Now we're here to talk to you, and we need you to go out and find her. We need you to go and just go. And the cop even asked Mickey's mom, Celia, like, what is your gut instinct telling you? And she said that she believed that something had happened to her baby. But of course, as we sometimes see in these cases, the cops didn't take it super seriously at first. They told Mickey's family, like, not to worry, that they were sure that she would show up at school the next day, to go home and to just relax. And Mickey's mom was like, no, you don't understand. Like, something is wrong. She's not going to show up at school tomorrow because something has happened. She did not go away on her own. And of course, she was right. The next day came, it was Friday, and Mickey did not show up at school. And this is when it really, like, was hammered home for her mom that, like, Mickey probably wasn't coming home because this didn't make any sense. She could just feel it. She knew something was... I think she knew. I think she was one of those people that just knew her daughter was gone. I could be wrong. Obviously, I don't know her, but it's just the vibe I get from listening to her talk. Like, some people are like, I knew they were out there. I knew they were out there. I don't get that vibe from her. I feel like she just knew. And she said that it made her feel like a failure. She felt like a failure, not only for not being able to protect Mickey, but also for not being able to, like, help her daughter DJ, because she was having a really hard time with the fact that her sister was missing, and she couldn't do anything to make it better for her. DJ went from upset and scared to also just mad, calling Mickey over and over and telling her, like, this isn't funny. You need to come home. Like, what the fuck? And it's just so sad. And then as for Christina, her older sister, she had been away all the way in Vegas and couldn't really do anything. You know, she had been telling herself, like, nothing was wrong. Maybe her sister was just out finally, like, fucking around and being a normal, rebellious teenager, even though that would be totally out of character for her. But now she realized that something was seriously wrong, and she asked her husband, like, let's go, we need to go back. And they made the hours-long drive back from Vegas to Wendover. Pretty soon after Mickey didn't show up at school the following morning, police, the small police station in Wendover, really started looking for her. They went and they searched her school, they searched her house, they searched all the surrounding areas, but they didn't find anything. And they quickly found that they didn't have any clues, they didn't have any eyewitnesses, they didn't really have any suspects, so they didn't have anywhere to start. They weren't convinced that it was foul play right from the beginning, and they weren't even convinced that she had been in trouble or that she may be dead. They were really holding out hope. Like, really, really holding out hope that she was just being a rebellious teenager and that she would show back up at home with some crazy story about where she had been and what she had been doing and apologize, and everything would be just fine. Mickey was described as being 5 foot 5 inches tall, weighing 105 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. And she was said to have last been seen wearing blue jeans with a dark colored sweatshirt, with a light colored shirt under it, and white tennis shoes. And police say that Mickey was also seen carrying a black backpack with white hearts. Now, even though police were holding out hope that she would just show back up and everything would be fine, in the meantime, they were still trying to talk to everyone who knew her, talk to her friends, see if they could figure out where she might have gone and who with, or what might have happened. Because even if she did leave voluntarily, she might have told somebody. So they did just that. They interviewed everyone who knew her. They interviewed all of her friends. And in doing so, they found out that Mickey had a boyfriend, a teenage boy who was a friend, a boyfriend. Yes. And his name was Javier. Javier and Mickey met in track, and they hit it off quickly. They were seen as being super cute and super sweet together. But he was also said to be a bit jealous, or that he had at least a jealous moment with Mickey. Apparently, Mickey had this guy best friend. His name was Cody, and in one instance, Javier and Mickey had been together in the hallway, and Cody had come over and grabbed her, threw her over his shoulder, and was like holding her up on his shoulder. And, you know, you've seen it. I can picture it in my head. I can picture the school. They're in the hallway, lockers. He's got her. Ha ha ha. Hilarious. Javier's like, well, this is a little bit weird. And it made him uncomfortable. And Mickey didn't understand why. She didn't understand why he would think it was weird, because this was just like her guy best friend. But his feelings might have been a little bit justified. One, he's a teenager, and teenagers are jealous things. They're learning how to be people. But even if he wasn't a teenager, this is the type of thing that could make a person jealous, because Mickey and Cody actually briefly dated, and it didn't work out. They broke up. Apparently, like, he was like unfaithful to her, and they broke up. It didn't work out, but they had remained friends. So Mickey didn't see why it was such a big deal, because they were just friends, and Cody had gone on and had like a fiance now, and she was with Javier. So what was the big deal? Police obviously want to look into Javier, right? Because he is the boyfriend, and statistically it is a significant other who is involved when a woman is murdered or disappears. So they go and they bring him in to be interviewed. And dude, this kid is an actual baby. Like, his face, he's just like a little cherub. He's so like precious and small and young. Well, he was then. That was many years ago now. Now he's a full-on adult. But back then, he was just a little baby goat. He tells police that he and Mickey had been dating for about 1.5 years, and the police ask him, like, okay, was anything going on with her? Was anything weird with her? Did you know anything that was going on that could have been upsetting her? Like, why would she go? And he said that no, she seemed fine. She seemed perfectly normal. Nothing was standing out to him. And he said that she was the type of person who wore her emotions, like, on her sleeve. She wasn't the type of person to hide that at all. So if something had been wrong with her and she was planning on, like, going somewhere, he really believes that he would have known it, or she would have told him. And Javier also told them the last time he saw Mickey was at lunch. He says that the two had their lunch together, as boyfriend and girlfriend do. And then they walked down the hall together to their class, and they said their goodbyes, and they went to their respective classes, and that was the last time he saw her. But that's not what Mickey's best friend Cody said in his interview. When Cody was brought in for questioning when Mickey went missing, he came in, he was super exhausted because he had been out the night before, like many people, looking for Mickey, because again, his best friend is missing. And he tells police, like, they ask him, like, when's the last time you saw Mickey? And he says that he saw her after track practice, which was well after lunch. And he said that he had seen her with a boy, a young man who he believed to be her boyfriend. And this was Javier. He specifically said that he saw her standing out in front of the school, like leaving through the front door, standing in the front with the quote Mexican kid, which rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was like, sir, that's a bit rude. Like, I don't know, just referring to somebody that way makes me raise my eyebrow at you a little bit, but that's what he said. But he was referring to Javier. Now, that's not what Javier said, right? Javier said he saw her at lunch, not right after track practice, which is right before she went missing. Police also asked him, like, they're questioning him, so they ask him for his alibi, because they have to check him off the list as well. They're not just going to take his word for it that Mickey was with Javier. You know what I mean? They're doing their due diligence. So they ask him where he was, and he says that after school that day, the day that Mickey went missing, he went and he picked up his fiance, that his fiance had been, like, at some meeting at a clubhouse with her parents, and then he went and picked her up there at about 5, and they were together until 7, and police went and they confirmed with his fiance that they were together, so they checked Cody off that list. But anyways, moving on. That doesn't look good, right? You don't like to see that there are inconsistencies with people's stories and inconsistencies on who Mickey might have last been seen with and who she might have last been with. It's kind of sketchy. So they're like, okay, we need to look into these alibis, see where people were, all of that jazz. So police are doing just that. They're looking into alibis, they're following all the leads, they're investigating, as police do in these situations. And in the meantime, her poor family just have to sit and wait. The police told Celia, like, to stay home, wait by the door, wait by the phone, wait and see if Mickey comes home, wait and see if Mickey calls, wait for us to call you, just wait, essentially. And she said she did just that. She went home and she just sat, she waited, and she stared at the door, knowing that Mickey wasn't going to walk through that door. So Christina, you remember Mickey's sister, she had driven all the way back home from Vegas. And as soon as she got back into town, she went to her mom's house. And, you know, I can only imagine what that was like. Very emotional. I'm sure there were a lot of tears. And she told her mom right away, like, she's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to look for Mickey. She said that she knew that she wasn't going to find her the way that they wanted. She knew in her gut that she wasn't going to find her alive. But she felt like she needed to go out and look. She said she felt in her, like, bones that she needed to go out and look, and that she was destined to be the one who found Mickey. So she did just that. She went out and she searched. She searched all over the isolated and abandoned areas all over town. She searched through the deserts. She went and looked at every single, like, dirt mound that looked suspicious, or any place that looked like it could have recently been dug up. And she ended up finding herself at a place called the Gravel Pits, having no idea just how close she was to actually being the one to find Mickey. Of course, Christina wasn't the only person out looking for Mickey. That was just on that night that she ended up so close to where she would be found. But police were out there searching, volunteers were out there searching, people were outside, alongside police and Mickey's family. And at one point, Mickey's sister DJ just, like, lost it out there. She, like, dropped to her knees and she was like, we're not gonna find her out here. And she was told, like, you know, you have to keep your head up, you have to have hope. And her sister's like, what hope? Like, what if she's, listen, if she's alive out there, then where is she? Right? What am I having hope for? Oh, it just makes me so sad. I think about that and I'm just like, damn, I can't imagine what that feels like. I really can't. I can't. The local media even covered this case pretty extensively in that area. Local media. Got it. Cool. And everybody was echoing the same thing, that they were hopeful that she would come home. They were hopeful that she would be found safe, because I think it was just too difficult for anyone to consider the alternative. But then, the alternative. Just a few days after Mickey went missing, that man who was either heading to work or heading home from work discovered those unusual tire tracks and followed them to the gravel pits. The same gravel pits where Mickey's sister Christina had just been searching for her sister. He went, he saw the sagebush, he saw the blood, he called the police. So local police went out and they brought a camera with them so that they could record anything that they found. They weren't really expecting to find a body, but they wanted to just record whatever it was just so everything could be on the record. So they go and they see the sagebush and they see the blood. So they start lightly digging just to kind of see what they could come across. And they quickly come across a human body. And they said, like, they really didn't think that that's what they were going to find. Yeah, blood might seem suspicious, but they said people go out all the time and they like bury dogs and shit like that. So they really were not expecting to be finding Mickey out there on that day. It was at this point that they realized that this was out of their expertise. This small police station just did not have the resources to properly preserve the crime scene. So they called in crime scene investigators from Reno to come and exhume the area properly to ensure that all evidence was recovered correctly. But Reno, man, that was a 9-hour drive. So somebody had to drive all of that way in order to do this. So in the meantime, local police just had to wait. They cordoned off the area and they were watching it to make sure nothing happened. Nobody went there, but they couldn't do anything. And I guess like while they were there, like guarding the scene until somebody from Reno could get there to properly process it, Mickey's sister Christina drove by and she recognized the area because she had just been there looking. And she saw a unmarked police car and saw that it was being cordoned off. And she said that she just knew. Her heart sunk and she drove straight to her mom's house and she picked her mom up so that they could drive to speak to the chief of police and find out what the fuck was going on. So they go and they speak to him and he tells them that a body has been found and that the searches for Mickey are called off. And her sister kind of loses it and is like, well, did you see her? Do you know it's her? Like, why are you calling off the searches? Did you see her? Like, have you confirmed that it's her? And he's like, no, I didn't see her myself yet. We haven't completely recovered her yet. And she's like, then why are you stopping the searches? Like, it might not be her. And he was like, listen, like, nobody else is missing. I can't even imagine. Can you imagine being in his situation and knowing how upset they are and how hopeful they are that this isn't what it is, but you knowing deep down that it is? It's just like, oh my God, my heart. Now, one of the things that's really sad here is the forensics team was coming from Reno, right? So they weren't going to be there until like the next morning, and her poor family had like learned this and was like, you guys are really going to leave her out there all night, like alone in the dark, in the ground all night. And the police chief was like, listen, like, she's not going to be alone. We're going to be there with her the whole time. We can't do anything. We need the scene to be good, but she's not going to be alone. But this was still like super hard for her family. They were like, oh, sure, that's great that she's not going to be alone, but she's still going to be out there in the cold. And they felt like they should have been the ones that were there with her. The following day, the police did release a press conference saying that a body had been found in a shallow grave, but they didn't specify that it was Mickey that was found in the shallow grave. Now, for the record, because some of you might still be thinking that the initial man that found Mickey was like suspicious, right? Because the thing is he wasn't even part of the search party. He had just been like out either at work, coming home, or going to work. I believe he was coming home from work because that makes a lot more sense to me. But either way, he wasn't part of the search party. So they thought it was weird that he happened to be the one who found her, that he just happened to find these tire tracks and just happened to like follow them, right? So he was looked into. And when they questioned him about it, they were like, yo, like, really, you just happened upon this situation? That seems real shady. And he said that like, he had heard about Mickey, he had heard about what happened, and he just felt so bad that he felt compelled to search for her, and that I guess it was just luck, and it turned out like he really had nothing to do with it, and it was just one of those situations where it seemed weird, but it was just coincidence. Anyways, I don't know why I even felt the need to tell you that, but I did, because it's one of those things that I feel like sometimes people do question those. Like, they are suspicious of those who randomly come upon bodies, like the man who found Kaylee Anthony and the man who found Heyman Lee. Like, people are always like, did they have something to do with it? This person, police thought the same thing, but it turns out he had nothing to do with it. But anyways, back to finding Mickey. So there was a jurisdictional issue when it came to where her body was found, because she was technically outside the city limits, because it was like on the edge of town, and she was technically outside the city limits. So this would put it in the sheriff's department's jurisdiction, but the sheriff's department was like 100 miles away. So it took some time, but eventually a detective from the sheriff's department came down, the crime scene techs from Reno came down, and they were able to unearth the body. And once they did, they were able to confirm that it was 16-year-old Mickie Costanzo. I guess they were able to tell just visually that it was her, but they were able to like officially confirm it. It was Mickey, and she was buried just 5 miles away from home. Mickey had been brutalized. She had been bound by zip ties. She had been beaten, cut. She had numerous slash marks across her face, her neck, and her head. And all of this was before she had been stabbed to death. Her main cause of death being a large cut to her throat. And the whole thing seemed to be aggressive, not precise, but personal. And this was confusing because this was like a happy, well-liked, popular 16-year-old girl. So who personally had such an axe to grind with her that they would just destroy her in this way? Once it was confirmed that it was Mickey's body, they went and they informed her family that she was dead. And I guess it was a horrific scene, a horrific telling. I can't imagine how it would feel to... I really should put I can't imagine on a t-shirt, because apparently I have no other words in my vocabulary ever. But I guess DJ just was destroyed. She like screamed and crumpled to the floor. And her mom said that like she still remembers DJ's scream to this day. And that DJ was doing exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to scream. She wanted to fall apart and fall to the ground, but she couldn't. She had to stay strong because she was the mama. And this woman, man, I feel like she is just such a good person, and it really kind of gives you an idea as to why Mickey was so great, because in every interview, every single telling, everything I saw from her, she's always focusing on her daughters. Like everything is about them and their pain and how they're dealing with losing Mickey and how it's affecting them. And she very seldomly talks about herself, even though you know it's destroying her. It's all about what she can do to help her daughters and what she couldn't do and how she feels bad about not being able to help them. And I'm just like, that is a mom. You know what I mean? Like that is a mom right there. And this mom, the next time she saw her daughter, was in a body bag. They did, and it wasn't even like she saw her shape through the body bag. They wouldn't open it for her. They were like, listen, it's her. You don't need to see her, which is probably the right move considering how brutalized she had been. It probably wouldn't have been good for her to see her at that time, but she just broke down and she cried and she like laid there and she held the body bag and she cried and told Mickey that she loved her and that she was sorry. And then they took her away from her again. They wheeled her away from her mother again, this time to go and perform her autopsy. Following the discovery of Mickey's body, her mother made a tearful plea to the public, saying, and I quote, "Please, ladies and gentlemen, this is not over yet until the person or persons responsible are brought to justice." Mickey's funeral was a huge service. It ended up getting to be so large that they had to rent out a 1,000-seat concert hall just to accommodate the number of people who wanted to come and say goodbye and pay their respects. And it was said that Mickey was like everyone's daughter, which I get it. It does ring weird in my ear because like she wasn't your daughter. She was Celia's daughter. She's the one who really lost her. But what they meant when they said this is that she was like the town's daughter and that everybody was greatly affected and mourned her loss. At Mickey's funeral, her teachers talked, her coaches talked, everybody talked about how great she was, how she had an infectious smile that could make anyone's day better. And they said that she was the like go-to girl and a natural leader and just an amazing person. Mickey's school was so affected that on the Saturday after she was found, the school officials actually opened up the high school for the staff and the students to gather. And the students created little memorials with flowers and candles for Mickey. And the school offered, they announced that they were going to be offering the Mickey Spirit of Friendship Award and Scholarship in her honor. And the high school counselor, a woman named Anne, said of Mickey's death, and I quote, "It's very solemn. There's lots of tears, and there's lots of people that are very scared or nervous." So Mickey was found now, but there still weren't any suspects. There weren't any main people of interest. They had nothing. This girl had no enemies. She was just a nice, popular, well-liked girl. Like, how many times can I say that? And that's how police felt too. They're like, how, like what? There's nobody. Who did it? Nobody. Like, what are we supposed to do here? But it wasn't a total loss. They were able to uncover a couple of things that they found useful. So they searched the scene first, and they didn't find any hair, fibers, or fingerprints, nothing like that. But they did find 2 pieces of evidence that would prove to be useful in pointing them in the direction of a suspect, finally. First, number 1, they were able to find Mickey's cell phone, and they thought, hey, this might be useful because she's a teenage girl. She has her phone glued to her hand. Maybe she was talking to somebody. Maybe there's a text message, something like that could lead us in the right direction. And when they looked into her cell phone records, they found that she had been talking to one person quite a bit. In addition to that, police were able to get the surveillance footage from the school from the day that Mickey disappeared. And they thought this could be especially useful because, remember, Mickey had zip ties on her wrists. Police were thinking that this was because she was abducted, and they thought it was very likely that she could have been abducted from the school. So they watched the footage, and that's when they see Mickey. And they see her walking down the hall, headed towards the back of the school after track practice. And then they see somebody else there, somebody walking behind her, seemingly following her out of the back of the school. This person following her just happens to be the exact same person who Mickey had been talking to a bunch on her phone right before she went missing. Now, any guesses on who this may have been? Go ahead and pause the video real quick. Leave your answer down in the comment section below. I will wait. Don't cheat. Don't wait for me to say it. Don't listen for me to say it and then go back and leave the comment because I will know. And I'm not your real mom, but I would appreciate your honesty. So go ahead and leave your guesses down below. Okay, did you do it? Okay, cool. It was her best friend of years, her puppy love, Cody Cree Patton. Now, who was Cody? Cody was a senior at the same high school Mickey went to, a big, real tall, 170-pound football player and one of Mickey's oldest friends. The 2 had grown up together, and she and Cody had a sort of puppy love, is how her family described it. Mickey had dated Cody for a short period, but it didn't last very long because, well, 1, she wasn't supposed to be dating, but I guess that was a little bit of a secret, and 2, Cody cheated on her. So it ended, and Mickey was pretty hurt by the whole thing, but the 2 remained friends and moved on. The 2 had been friends forever and were very close, so Mickey's family was very familiar with Cody. Cody had even lived in the same apartment complex as Mickey and her family. I guess his parents were the managers of the apartment complex, and so he had been around a lot. He had shared meals with them, you know, they were very close. But since then, he had moved. He had actually met a new little girlie and gotten engaged. This was a girl named Tony Frotto, and the 2 had gotten engaged, and he was now living with her and her family for 2 reasons. 1, because they were engaged, so they want to live together, and 2, he started getting into some trouble, messing up at school, and his parents kicked him out of the house. So he's like, okay, fine, I'm going to go move in with Tony. So that's Cody. And for the record, because remember Cody said that she was last seen with Javier because he was trying to like throw them off his trail. I just thought I'd let you know that the police did look into Javier's alibi. He had told them that he had left school and went and picked up his little brother, I believe, and then went to his after school job because he had a job because he was responsible. And they looked into it, and all of that was proven to be true. So he had a strong alibi for when Mickey went missing. Now, back to the surveillance video. So what they're seeing on this video is not what Cody said, right? He tried to make it seem like she was one at the front of the school, not at the back of the school, and that she was with Javier, not with him. But now they're watching and they're like, she's walking to the back of the school and you are following her, and then she went missing. So what the fuck? So they decide they want to speak to Mickey's mom because, again, they knew that Cody and her were very close. They had grown up together, and that Mickey's mom was very familiar with him, so they wanted to speak to her and kind of find out who he was, what she thought about him, things like that. Kind of get some more information on who he was as a person. Celia told police that Cody was an interesting person, that he was the type of kid who could be the literal biggest sweetheart in the world, but at the same time, he could turn on a dime, and he had a really bad temper. Police bring Cody in for questioning, and he comes in with his dad because he's underage. Wait, is he underage? No, I don't think he actually was underage. But he's accompanied by his father regardless. And just to look at him, police didn't get a bad vibe. He had a look to him that didn't look suspicious. He was tall, clean cut, seemed like a good kid. He was respectful. He told police the same story he had the first time, that he wasn't with Mickey, that he had left and he'd been with Tony and blah, blah, blah. And when he was questioned about like the text messages and why he had been blowing up Mickey's phone so much, he basically said that he needed to move some car parts and that Mickey was like his best friend. So she was his go-to girl. So he wanted her help with doing that. It turns out, though, later we find out from a friend of Mickey's that the texts that Cody had been sending to her were like weird cryptic things, him telling her that he wanted to do a project with her but wouldn't say what the project was and wouldn't give her any more information. And Mickey had confided in a friend that these were very unusual texts to her. So police press him a little bit on the text messages and also on the fact that you're saying that you last saw her, you're sticking to your story that you saw her leaving through the front of the school and that she was with Javier. But other people and also the cameras are showing that she went to the back of the school and that you were following her. And they also were like, the text message thing sounds like bullshit also. So they press him. And this is when he says that, okay, the real reason they had been texting so much is that Mickey wanted to get back with him and they were talking about them. And then he says that Mickey asked him for a ride home so that they could also talk about them because she didn't have one, and that he had agreed and he had driven her home, dropped her off, and hadn't seen her since. At this point, police are like, hell yeah, we got him to admit that she was in the truck. We've got his back against the wall. So at this point, they're like, hey, they lied to him. They're allowed to do that. They're like, hey, we tested the dirt on the truck that you borrowed because it wasn't his truck. We'll get into that later, but we tested the dirt on the truck that you were driving, and it matches the dirt found at the gravel pit. So what's up with that? If you drove her home, why does your truck have dirt on it that was also found where she was murdered? And this is where he panics, and he now changes his story again and admits that he had gone out to the gravel pits with her, that they wanted to go and be alone to talk about them because earlier in the day, Mickey had told him that she was still in love with him and that they wanted to talk about that. So at this point, police are like, oh, we got this mother. Okay, like we got him. So they're like, listen, we know you were involved. We saw her walking. We saw that you were waiting for her. And this is when she went missing. And this is when she died. And we know that you did it. And he denied it, obviously. But he sounded really freaked out. And it was at about the 4-hour mark that Cody started to break. He was adamant, no matter what was said, that he did not kill her. But the interview was clearly getting to him. And it was at this point that he asked for a break. He said he wanted to be with his father for a little bit. He said he needed a breather and he wanted to tell his father the truth. Now, once his father and him were together in that room, it's not known what was said because it wasn't recorded. Why? I don't know. I really don't, especially because I think they were left in an interrogation room. I don't know why it wouldn't be recorded, but it wasn't. But from outside the door, the officers could hear what sounded like a heated conversation between the two, followed by what they describe as Cody's father wailing. So police go back in and they see Cody and his father, who looks like he's just had his world totally shattered, tells Cody like, okay, be a man, tell them what you did. And at this point he waives his Miranda rights and he says that he's going to tell them the truth. Maybe the truth. Cody's father said to him through tears, and I quote, "You gotta start fixing this now as much as you can. What you did is heinous, Cody. I don't want to abandon you at all, okay? You gotta do what's right." It's at this point that Cody makes a confession. He tells his father and he tells police the truth about what happened. Well, his first version of the truth of what happened to Mickey. He told them that he had picked up Mickey to give her a ride home since her sister was out of town. And while the two were driving, Mickey dropped a bombshell on him that she still loved him, that he needed to break up with Tony, his fiance, and to be with her. And he says that he told her no, and that at this point she got very upset. She started to fight with him. She started to hit him while he was driving, and they happened to be by the gravel pits, so he pulled over and the two got out and they started to argue. He said that she started to push him and pound on his chest, so he started just kind of pushing her off. Pushing her off. And he says that at one point she hit him real good, one good swing on the side of his head, and that it really hurt him. And in response, he gave her one big shove, and when he shoved her, she fell back and she hit her head into the bumper of the car. He says when she fell, she hit her head, and then she just laid on the ground and kind of stared up at the sky blank, and that her eyes then went dark. But he says at that point that she started to seize. She started shaking and seizing, and that she wouldn't stop, and she was making noise. And he went over and he checked her pulse, but he couldn't find one, but that she was still shaking, and he didn't know what to do, and he panicked. So he says that he went to the vehicle he was driving, and he grabbed a shovel and proceeded to hit her in the head, hoping that it would knock her unconscious, but it didn't, but it did mess her up pretty bad. He said at this point she was making a lot of sounds. He described them as gurgling sounds, and he just wanted her to stop, and not knowing any other way to make her stop, he took the shovel and took the sharp end of the shovel and stuck it into her throat to make the sound stop. Now, why did he have the shovel? He said he was using it to move the car parts, which I have to be honest, makes absolutely no sense to me. Let me know if you move car parts and you need to use a shovel to do so, but that's what he said. All while telling police as he's crying, he's hysterical, and he's making himself sick through the, I guess, emotional turmoil of reliving this event. He said that he then put her in that grave under the bush and then went and burned some items that had been theirs near the gravel pit. When asked why she had zip ties on her wrists, he says that he had put them on her wrists so that he could then try to take her to the dump, but he had already stabbed her in the throat with a shovel at this point and killed her. So why would he need the zip ties if she wasn't fighting him off? You know what I mean? Like, it didn't make sense. So that was brought up to him, and he said he was trying to make it look like she had been kidnapped by somebody else to kind of throw investigators off if she had ever been recovered. So Cody was arrested, and all the students at the tight-knit high school she attended were devastated by the announcement. Like, the entire school, all the students and even the staff took the news very hard because they were an extremely tight-knit group. And the vice principal said that everyone there was just emotionally spent from the whole ordeal. A lot of people wanted the death penalty for Cody, obviously, because of what he did. And he was over the age of 18 at the time. So the likelihood of him getting it was kind of high, especially because of how brutal the murder was. But not everybody was sure this was the right move. And some of the people that weren't sure this was the right move was even members of Mickey's family. They just really had trouble believing that it was Cody. He was a good kid from a good family. He had always been such a good friend to Mickey. They knew him. They trusted him. So they had trouble believing that he could do something like this. They believed that if he had done it, he must have been told to do it by somebody else, like convinced to do it. Like, they believed there had to be more to the story, basically. They weren't believing what he was saying happened because they didn't think it made sense at all. And on top of not believing his story about, like, what happened at the scene, like where she was killed, they also didn't believe the story about Mickey wanting to get back with Cody in the first place. Like, she had her own boyfriend now. She had Javier. They were happy. They were chilling, not killing. And on top of that, she knew that Cody was with Tony, and she had been super respectful of that. She knew that, like, it would make Tony uncomfortable if they were together a lot because they had dated before. So she was actually keeping her distance away from Cody to be respectful to his fiance. Tony and Cody seemed pretty serious. Like, Cody had even converted to Tony's religion, Mormonism, and Tony was planning on being with Cody and by his side when he entered the Marines. And she was even helping him improve in school so he could go and follow that dream to be in the Marines. So Mickey, knowing this, knowing how serious they were engaged, for God's sakes, they weren't just dating. She was like, okay, cool, I'm just going to keep my distance, keep a little space between us because I don't want to make anyone jealous. I mean, look at how jealous Javier got when me and Cody were being friendly, right? I don't need that drama, essentially. And clearly these two were very serious, Cody and Tony. I mean, because even after he got arrested, she was still, like, right by his side. I mean, as right by his side as one could be while he is in jail. She would drive the 4 hours to visit him, write him love letters, tell him she loved him, and would be with him and only him. And they'd talk on the phone due to this collect calling plan her father had purchased for her. It had to look to those on the outside like she was in denial of what he had done. In denial of what he had done? Sure, that sounds right. Because otherwise, why would she be going and visiting him, right? And nobody could understand how this happened. Not Tony, not Mickey's family, not Cody's family, not even Tony's family could understand. Like, they had come to love him as their own son. He lived with them. You know what I mean? Like, he was part of their family. And they would ask him, like, how could you do this? Why did you do this? What happened? And he would just say, like, I can't tell you. I'm not allowed to tell you. My lawyer told me I have to stop talking. Tony's father, Claude, said of Cody, Tony's father, Claude, said of Cody, Tony and Cody, that messes me up. At this time, and I quote, "We thought Cody was really trying to put his life in order. he always had a lot of problems. The side of Cody which we knew is completely different than the Cody we know now. The feeling that there was more to the story was shared by many. Even the police felt this way because a retired Secret Service agent ended up being hired to look into Cody, look into the details of the murder, and look into his confession. And when he looked into it first, he was like, okay, the wounds, the cuts to her face, everything about this doesn't say accident. It doesn't say got knocked into the bumper of a car. It doesn't say like a panic situation. It says intent and it says rage. So his story that already didn't sound believable was clearly bullshit. This investigator, in trying to learn more about Cody, decided he wanted to speak to Cody's fiance, Toni, which makes sense, obviously. Like, who else would you talk to but somebody who's going to marry the man? And she had already been spoke to before because, remember, everybody who knew Mickey or friends with Mickey, went to school with Mickey, was questioned, and she was one of those people who were questioned, but this guy wanted to talk to her again, right, to get his own take on the situation, essentially. She told this investigator that, like, she had no idea why Cody did what he did, and the investigator found her interview to be weird. Not in like what she said, but how she said things. He said that she was, quote, deadpan and emotionless, end quote. And he found this odd. But then again, her fiance was in jail for murder, so one would be a bit odd in that situation. I can only imagine. Put it on a t-shirt. Come to find out, though, the investigator wasn't the only one who noticed that Toni was acting a little bit different than one would expect her to act given the situation. Mickey's sister DJ said that after Mickey was killed and after Cody was arrested for it, Toni wouldn't even look her in the eye. Like, she completely avoided her gaze, but she just chalked it up to the fact that she was engaged to the man who was in jail for murdering her sister. Anyways, during the time that Cody was in jail awaiting trial, about 2 months after the murder, in May, Mickey's family and her friends got together to celebrate what would have been Mickey's 17th birthday, and they celebrated at the school, at the track, where she had won so many races. Her family brought cake and balloons and met up with Mickey's friends, and they all just got together and celebrated her and remembered her. And her mother said that this was the second hardest day of her life, second only to learning that she had been murdered. Now, Cody is sitting in jail with that ridiculous story. And it's not looking good, right? He's up for the death penalty. There are no other suspects. There's no evidence that anybody else was involved. And he has admitted to doing it. And even though the evidence at the scene doesn't quite line up with what he said happened, it is clear that he was there and that he did take part in her murder, right? Cool. Well, this case blew wide open when Cody's attorneys, the defense team, received a visitor. A visitor came into their office with a useful tip. Well, not really a tip, more of a confession. This was Toni Fratto, Cody's fiance. Toni had been driven into Cody's attorney's office by Cody's father, and she sat there looking hollow, blank, in her pajamas, and she told Cody's attorneys that she needed to tell them the truth about what really happened to Mickey. Now, we're going to start with talking about Toni and Cody and who they were as a couple and who they were individually, and then we're going to get into what Toni told police that day. Or not police, his attorneys. What Toni admitted to that day when she showed up in her pajamas. Let's first talk about Toni, Toni Fratto, F-R-A-T-T-O. Let's talk about who Toni was. Toni was a teenage girl who came from a good family. She was one of 3 kids who grew up in Wendover, and she was, studious, good in school, but not great socially, okay? She was incredibly shy and didn't have a lot of close friends. She wasn't one to really go up and say hi to people at school or try and make conversation, which is kind of counterintuitive to what she said that she wanted, because she said that she felt like an outsider and wanted friends and wanted love, but she didn't want to do anything to get those things. She was kind of waiting for them to come over to her and be like, hey, I'm here for you. And normally, that doesn't really work. But in her case, it did. It took some time, but someone finally did come over and kind of present themselves to her. And this was Cody. Cody had lived in an apartment complex right next to the trailer park where Toni lived. And that, coupled with the two going to school together, gave them plenty of opportunities to run into each other. Now, to those who knew Toni and Cody, their relationship seemed kind of weird. They seemed like an unexpected couple, right? Toni, though she had been a former beauty queen when she was younger, she grew up to be like shy, a bit of an outcast, a bit of a loner. Like I said, she wasn't very popular, and Cody was the complete opposite. He was a football player, and he was well known, and he was well liked, and he was said to be particularly popular with the ladies. Like, he was said to be out there bugsing, and not just with like girls from his school, but also with older women as well in the town. He was that guy. Cody was said to be one of the more popular guys at school. He was a sports guy. He liked to race bikes and work on cars, and he was very social, unlike Toni. He was said to be cool and confident and well-liked and all of that jazz, and like I said, he was very popular with the ladies. So when Cody, who had all of these options, started talking to Toni, of all people, she was like, who? Me? Is this a sick joke? Are you in with me? But he wasn't, and so she quickly fell for him. Like, she was very enamored with him and was like, oh shit, this is real, and quickly fell in love with him. And it's actually sad to me because when I was looking into this case, like, I don't feel bad for these people, but this particular part made me feel kind of bummed out just for anyone else going through that situation. I guess people were wondering why somebody like him, somebody as popular as him, and somebody with his looks, I don't see it, would fall for the shy, awkward, low self-esteem girl. And I was like, that's messed up, man. That's like a mean thing to say. Like, I don't know. I just felt like that was mean. But basically what it came down to is Cody was the type of guy who needed to be adored, to be admired, and to have somebody kind of like worship the ground he walked on. And Toni was kind of starved for affection, so when he gave her a little bit of affection, she was the perfect person to give him exactly that. He needed to feel important, she needed to feel desired, so they both gave each other what they had been really, really needing, so that's how they made sense as a couple. Now, the two got very serious very fast, especially for their young age, and soon after getting together, they were engaged, and they were even going on to try to have a baby, which, I'm going to say this, I'm glad they weren't able to. Normally, I would never say that, because I feel like anyone who wants a kid should be able to have a kid, right? But these two people do not need to reproduce, so I'm thankful a kid wasn't brought into this situation. But people who knew them, which again, this is so messed up, thought that Toni and him trying to have a baby was just because Toni was insecure that he would leave her at some point. So she was trying to have a baby to make him stay, to sort of like trap him, let's call it what it is, to trap him into staying with her. Now, there are differing accounts on what their relationship was like, but one thing across the board that seems to be true is that she was very in love with him. She did seem to have a little bit of like the Messiah complex, you know, save the men, but she did seem to love him. And he said that he loved her too, but I don't know. If he did love her, he showed it to her in very interesting ways, and she accepted what she got. People really do accept the love they think they deserve. Now, Toni didn't have a lot of friends prior to Cody. She was mostly just close to her family, but when the two got together, she fell completely in love with him and became infatuated with him, and they said that Cody was a bit possessive of her. They said Cody was more than a foot taller than her and that he would intimidate her, yell at her, push her around. But with that said, they allowed him to live with them, right? They allowed Cody to live in their home, and none of these allegations of him abusing her or them being aware of him abusing her came out until after she went to his attorneys and was like, I was involved. And after she got into trouble, like prior to that, they were like, oh, I can't believe he did this. He was like a son. We loved him like a son. So I don't know how true it is that they knew, or how true it is that he was like openly abusive with her. Don't get me wrong. He was abusive to her, which we are going to get into. But I feel like it's one of those things where now that the narrative of him being abusive and controlling over her came into play in her trial, that her parents are now like, yeah, he was really, really bad. You know what I mean? I could be wrong, but we'll get there. You know what? Let's just get there now. So basically what happened is there was a video that was found when police were looking for this through the school surveillance system investigating Mickey's murder, okay? And in this video, you see Cody assault Toni. And it's not fun to watch. I did see it and I was like, damn, that's pretty fucked up, especially for anybody, but like a little high school girl, like that sucks to see. You don't want to see it. And Toni never reported this. She never turned him in because he had, one, she loved him. She was still going to stay with him. And two, he had plans to go into the Marines and she did not want this to jeopardize his future. In the video where Cody assaulted Toni, you see the two of them fighting, right? They're arguing, you can tell by their body language. And then you see him grab her and slam her into a locker and like lift her off the ground by her throat and hold her there. He then lets her go and they continue fighting, you can tell by the body language. And then he proceeds to cock back his fist and hold it at her while he's yelling at her for like a little while before picking up his backpack and taking off. So now that you have a little bit more of a backstory on this couple, let's go back to when Tony showed up at Cody's attorney's office, ready to tell her truth. So there Tony is, sitting in Cody's attorney's office next to Cody's dad in her pajamas with a story to tell. And now for the record, the reason that Cody's dad brought her and her parents did not is because her parents were out of town. Though later her parents would be like, he got her to go, she, you know, all that BS, which we'll get into. But that was the reason that Cody's dad brought her to Cody's attorney's office. Okay, Cody and Tony, those names are going to mess me up. I can already feel it in my bones. Now, the story that Tony told Cody's attorneys was very different than the one that Cody had told his attorneys. Most pointedly was that Cody had said that he had killed Mickey, that he had killed her totally on his own. But now Tony was putting herself at the crime scene and putting some of the blame for the murder on herself. Now, Tony didn't say that this murder was planned, but she definitely implied that it was planned because Cody had actually borrowed a vehicle just for this specific occasion. So he knew he was going to be picking her up. Did he know what he was going to be doing with her? I can't imagine he would have gotten this vehicle just for no reason and this just happened, but that's just me. And for some backstory on that, the car he borrowed for this particular crime, he borrowed from this woman named Wendy, this older woman named Wendy, and she told him, like, I need my car back by 5. I need it, like, it's mine, bring it back by 5. He's like, cool, cool, cool. And he told her that he was using it to move some, like, metal and some wood, right? Cool, great. Now, 5:45 rolls around and he still hasn't brought the car back. And she's like, bro, what's going on? Like, I told you I need it. I gotta go to my son's basketball game. Give me my car. And he was like, sorry, sucks to suck. I'm still moving stuff. And he didn't even bring it back to her till 9. I just wanted to tell you that. Because it shows how long this whole situation probably took, how long he was with Tony, and also just shows what a dick he is, because, like, how inconsiderate is that? But moving on. Now, Tony says before she got into the situation, before she was in the picture, Mickey and Cody had been together and they had been driving around, and that Mickey had suggested they go to the outskirts of town because she didn't want anybody to see them together, which doesn't make any sense to me. But okay. Once Cody had Mickey, he texted Tony and was like, I got her, which was her way of knowing that he had Mickey. And then they went and they picked up Tony. They drove around together for a while in what I can only imagine would be a very uncomfortable situation. And Mickey, Tony, and Cody started arguing in the car as they got closer to the gravel pits. So Cody pulls over, Mickey gets out, she's pissed off, she gets out, she storms off, Cody gets out and goes after her, and the two start to argue. Just so you know, this is Tony's account of what happened, not what actually happened, because we still don't know exactly what happened. This is what she said in this version of the story. Cody, Mickey get out, they start arguing, and Mickey starts pushing Cody. Tony says the whole reason that this happened, the whole reason that they were all together is because Mickey wanted to get back with Cody. So she was saying the same thing that Cody said, that Mickey wanted to get back with Cody, but he didn't want to get back with her and he had been avoiding her. So on this day, he was like, you know what, fine, I'm going to pick her up, I'm going to talk to her, I'm going to set the record straight, but Tony, I want you to be there because, like, this involves all of us. So that's what she said. So now they're fighting because apparently Mickey's pissed off because he won't get back with her. So they're fighting. Tony stays in the car, and Tony says that she looks away from the two arguing for a second, and that's when she heard a big thud. So she gets out of the car, and that's when she finds that Mickey is on the ground. She's not moving, she's not responsive, and Cody starts immediately digging a hole. She says that once the grave was dug, they looked over and they found that Mickey was half conscious and was making noise. So they went over and together, they beat her. It makes me so fucking mad. They beat her, they kicked her, they stomped on her, and then they drug her to the grave because they were trying to figure out what they were going to do because they couldn't comprehend what they had just done. Sure. She says then she helped Cody hold her down, and she was like holding Mickey's legs, and she was fighting, and she says that at that point Mickey's throat was cut, and when she was asked who cut Mickey's throat, she said that both of them did. So Cody's attorneys are sitting there, they're hearing this, and they are fucking stoked, dude, because to them, this is like the best case scenario. They just got a way easier job. This gives them something, basically they have another person that they can place the blame on, which takes a little bit of the heat off of their client because it looked like it was very obvious that it was just him, you know? And I guess Tony thought that she had some sort of attorney-client privilege because she was talking to an attorney when she was admitting this, but they weren't her attorneys. So they were like, sucks to suck, and they turned her confession over to the police, and she was promptly arrested and charged with kidnapping and murder. Now, I really wonder why she confessed. She had no reason to do so. She wasn't a witness. She wasn't even a person of interest. There was no evidence at the scene, no DNA, nothing linking her to the case. But now she was putting herself in the position where she could get the death penalty. And no one understood it. Her family was absolutely shocked, and they actually believed, at least in the beginning, that she had nothing to do with it and that she had to have been coerced into confessing to something that she just simply did not do. She was like a small little girl and a devout Mormon and a sweet little beauty queen. That's how they saw her, at least. And they were convinced that Cody's dad convinced her to confess, since it was him who drove her to the attorney's office. But he said no, that she came to him with a confession and that he just took her because her parents were out of town. But they just didn't believe that she was involved. And they believed that if she was involved, it was simply at Cody's instruction, that he had made her do whatever it was that she did. And this is where their opinion of him seems to shift. It's at this point that her parents are like, okay, like, listen, I know we said that he was like a son to us, but really what it was is he's only lived with us for like 6 weeks. It hasn't been that long. And we only let him because we were worried that if we didn't let him move in with us, that our daughter would just leave us and end up with this guy. And we didn't want that to happen because, like, when they got together, she changed. She changed a lot and she became a different person. etc, right? Their whole tone changed, which is, it might very well be true, right? You could have blinders on or be trying to appease your child so that you don't lose them, right? And that could be why they were acting like they liked him so much. Who's to say? But they do seem to have come to terms with the fact that she was at least involved. But they believe that she did so begrudgingly, that she is a battered woman, and that she only participated in Mickey's murder because she was afraid. She was afraid that if she did not, she would lay down beside Mickey as well. That's their opinion. Oh, and for the record, just because I realized I didn't mention it, Tony's attorney did try to get her confession thrown out. They were like, this is bullshit, like this shouldn't be in, blah, 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 blah. But when Tony had confessed, she had given some details that were not privy to the public and that she should not have known unless she had been there, or I guess unless Cody told her. But they believed that it was enough that her confession should be allowed. They were like, nah, dog, you are in jail. Now, things are very interesting here because before the trials began, Cody was actually offered a plea deal. He was offered a plea deal where he would plead guilty to first-degree murder, and in exchange, the death penalty would be taken off the table, right? Because he was up to die, which is like scary, right? Death. Ooh, no thank you. But in exchange, he would have to testify against Tony, and these two were in love, blah, blah, blah. But he did agree to it. At first, he even wrote a sworn statement about what happened. But then he decided out of nowhere that he didn't want to take this deal, and he backed out and said that he would take his chance at trial. So I guess you could say that's him being like a loving fiance sticking by his woman. But the police were like, okay, fine. Or not the police, the DA. Whoever makes these decisions was like, okay, cool. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go offer Tony a deal. So they go and they offer Tony a deal. And they offer her an even better deal. They offer her a deal where she would plead guilty to second-degree murder with a chance of parole after just 18 years. 10 years for the second-degree murder charge and an additional 8 years for the deadly weapon enhancement. And all she had to do was testify against Cody. So they'd have a stronger case against him, and she would be out before she turned 49 years old. And she was like, yippers. What did I say about saying yippers? She was like, fuck yeah, like absolutely. The girl who had seemingly cared about Cody enough to turn herself in when she wasn't even on police's radar and say that she was involved in a murder, had now seemingly understood the gravity of the situation she had put herself in and was like, I gotta do what's best for me. I gotta put me first. And was like, yep, I will take that deal and I will testify against Cody. So in making this plea deal, Tony gives police another version of what happened. She sits and she confesses to them for 3 hours. And in this story, again, it's different than the first story she told, and it's different than the story that Cody had told previously. Where before she had said she had no idea why Cody did what he did, now she gave a motive. She said that Cody hated Mickey, hated her face, hated the sound of her voice, and that things had been building up between the two of them for a while. So the story starts out the same, with her getting a text from Cody saying, I got her. Him going and picking Tony up. But in this version, Mickey wasn't just driving around with them aimlessly, the three of them arguing, talking, being all awkward. In this version, Mickey was there, but she was laying in the back and she looked terrified and she had her hands up by her face. She says that Cody wouldn't speak to her, wouldn't talk to her, just stared ahead and drove until they ended up at the gravel pit. She said that he then parked the car and that while he was sitting beside her, he sent her a text saying, she has to die. We have to kill her. She says then Cody then got out of the car and started to dig the grave and told Tony that she had to keep watch. Once he was done digging the grave, he came back to the car and he grabbed Mickey and he ripped her out of the car. He pulled her out by her hair and threw her on the ground. and then started to beat her and told Tony to do the same. So she did, and she admitted that she kneed Mickey in the face. She says at this point Cody beat Mickey, that he kicked her, that he punched her, he stomped on her. She says that she did not take part in this until Cody told her to hit Mickey with the shovel. A shovel that Katie, the subscriber, the Brat Pack member who suggested this case, said that Cody had stolen from the school's metal shop. Like, he stole the shovel in advance. So he tells Tony to hit Mickey with the shovel. She says she didn't want to, but she did it, and that she hit Mickey like in the back on her shoulder. She says that Cody then took the shovel from her and hit Mickey in the head and then drug her into the grave. She says at this point, Cody starts to attack Mickey. Like, he climbs on top of Mickey and starts to attack her, and that she's down by Mickey's ankles, holding them as she kicked. And she says that at one point she looked up and she saw Cody attacking Mickey with the knife, that he was the only person that used the knife, and that at one point she saw Mickey looking up at the sky saying, oh, this makes me so sad, saying, "Am I still here? Am I still alive? Can I go home?" She says she kept holding Mickey's legs as she kicked, and that eventually she just stopped kicking. She says at this point Mickey had died, and that Cody went on to bury her by himself before the two got back in the vehicle, drove to like a swimming pool to clean off, and then drove to McDonald's to get a nice cold drink because they had really, parched themselves with this strenuous murder. She says later after that they drove to Utah, which by the way, they're like right on the border. I mentioned this in the first video, but they're like right on the border near Utah, so it's not like super far of a drive, but they drove to Utah. They burned some of her items, and she says that though Cody hated Mickey, he never told her like what the one thing was, like the thing that really set him off to do this on this day, and that she never asked. Now, this story seems, I don't know, to me a little bit unbelievable, right? To me it seems like every story we get, we're getting a little bit of the picture, right? A little bit of truth, a little bit of truth, a little bit of truth, but the entire picture of what happened that day is just a little bit out of focus. It's just not quite right. So a lot of people felt this way, right? They felt like the stories didn't quite make sense, that the why, the motive there didn't quite add up. And Cody's defense team felt this way as well. So they actually hired a private investigator, and this private investigator went to Tony's house to collect evidence, and they ended up leaving her room, like her home, with like a box of evidence. And inside this box, they did find one thing that helped kind of bring things into focus a little bit. They found one piece of evidence that seemed to possibly give a motive for what might have happened. Tony had been keeping a diary, and inside this diary, it gave a little bit of insight into Tony's mind. Apparently, Tony was very insecure in her relationship with Cody. She thought for sure he was going to leave her one day. She wrote about wanting to die if he ever did leave her, and she wrote about her extreme jealousy of Mickey. She wrote about how Mickey and Cody should be together, that they were perfect for each other, that eventually he would leave her to, quote, get back with Mickey. She wrote how Cody and Mickey would be so happy if she hadn't stole him away from her, and that she knew in her heart that he did not love her, that he loved Mickey. And this wasn't a secret. Remember, I told you guys, it was last video, so again, if you haven't seen the last video, you're going to want to watch. But Mickey knew that Tony and Cody were in a serious relationship, and she tried to stay clear of them. Remember I mentioned that? Well, part of the reason she did that is because she knew that Tony was insanely jealous. Apparently Tony would lose it if she saw Cody and Mickey together. She would like freak out, she would scream, she would make a scene, she would talk shit to Mickey all the time at school when she would see her. Tony would mutter like shitty little comments under her breath, and Mickey just wasn't about it. She was like, I'm gonna avoid all that drama, like that's not something I need to be involved in. And I guess it was so bad that Cody wasn't even allowed to talk to Mickey's sisters. Like if Tony saw that, she'd get pissed. So even that was off limits. So clearly that's something. And despite this seeming like it could be a motive, right? This seems like a stronger motive than, based on everything we know, Cody just all of a sudden hating his best friend, hating her so much, wanting nothing to do with her. Tony had taken the plea deal, and Cody was going to trial. Now the trial was set to take place in a different area because this small town, they wouldn't be able to find like an impartial jury. It was a very small place. Everybody knew everybody, right? But before the trial started, this part got me. This part really messed me up. Apparently, Mickey's mother, Celia, looked at every photo of her daughter, the crime scene, even the autopsy photos, because she said that she needed to be prepared, that she could not have the first time she saw her daughter in that state be in that courtroom, or she wouldn't be able to handle it. I cannot imagine how difficult that would be for any mother to see their child dead, for one, but the extent of the like the beating that this girl took, okay? Her mother had to see that. There was a whole article about it where they said the chief medical examiner described the wounds shown in the photos as, quote, bruises on the girl's back and a stab and slash wounds to her face and neck, including one that cut her jugular vein. And they said that Mickey bled to death from the wounds, which were believed to have either been caused by a knife, which was found along with some of Mickey's items that were burned, or the shovel. So she was in bad shape. She was covered in bruises, stab and slash wounds to her face and neck. Like, her mom saw all of that. And I can't imagine seeing it. I've seen autopsy photos. I've seen crime scene photos, and they're hard for me when I don't even know the person. This poor woman. Ugh, it makes me sick. Tony and Cody were tried separately, as we sometimes see, right? Cool. It makes sense. And they stuck to their separate stories. Cody saying that it was him alone and it was an accident, and Tony saying that it was them together and that it was intentional. And even though Tony made a plea deal, as I mentioned, she still did have to go to court, and she had to face Mickey's family, the family that she destroyed. And I can only imagine how intense that would be. In an article written in 2012, it stated that Celia, Mickey's mom, hadn't worked in a full year after Mickey was killed. She couldn't bring herself to go out to restaurants where she used to go to lunch with Mickey, and she barely cooked at home because she was teaching Mickey to cook before she was murdered, which, oh, my heart. She said she can't even go to the grocery store or even read books with her grandchildren because all of this just reminds her of things she used to do with her daughter that she can no longer do. Celia said of her daughter, and I quote, "There's not a day, a moment, a second that I don't think about her and what we would be doing. I can't even go out and have lunch because that was kind of our thing on Mondays and Tuesdays. With Micaela being gone, there's a part of me that's just been ripped away." She continued saying of her daughter, and I quote, "I don't have that chance to see Micaela grow, to become the author, the mom. I can't make this right for Micaela. Only the courts can." Celia was incredibly emotional during the hearing. Jesus, as I'm sure you can imagine. Like, there's this one point that absolutely killed me, where during the hearing, she like held up this plastic evidence bag, and inside of it, it held Mickey's house key, and it had this keychain on it, and it was a little panda that had the word buds on it, and I guess it was like one half of a keychain, of like a best friend keychain. Her best friend Tiffany had the one that said best, so it was two little pandas that said best buds, and it just got to me because it lets you know what a little, like a child she was, you know, like, and what a person she was, just matching keychains of little pandas with her best friend that say best buds. That note just like really got to me because I was like, damn, that's just so like, we've seen it, we've been it, we've lived it, we've done it, and she did too, and now she's gone. And that just hit my heart a little bit, you know. And this was really hard on Mickey's sisters also, as I'm sure you can imagine, because remember, they were all so close. Like, Celia said that her sister DJ is just not the same person anymore. I guess she had to, like, quit college. She quit college and she moved out of her hometown because she just couldn't be there anymore and couldn't see everybody anymore. And I guess she couldn't even hang out with her friends anymore because since her and Mickey were so close in age and they were like twins and best friends, all of her friends were mutual friends with Mickey, and she just couldn't see them anymore. She couldn't be around them anymore. So she lost like everything important in her life also. And she said of like her sister, and I quote, "I can't find joy anymore. I think it's so sad. It makes me wonder when anything will be okay anymore." And then Mickey's older sister Christina has just said, like, "I don't even feel safe in my own community anymore. How am I supposed to feel safe when something like this happened like right next door?" You know, it's just how these things affect so many people. Like, it's not just you selfish little shits. Like, it affects so many people. So stop sucking so bad, please. God. At Tony's sentencing hearing, Christina said to the court, and I quote, "Now I'm just scared all the time. I beg you, give her the same thing she gave my sister. She didn't give her a chance. She could have helped her." And then she went on to cry in court talking about how, like, Tony can still call her parents and, like, talk to them and know they're okay and they can know she's okay. Obviously, it's not okay for her parents either because, like, they are losing their child, which is, like, a whole nother thing, which we'll get into later, right? But for Mickey's family, they can never talk to her again. Christina can never call her sister again and tell her how much she loved her, and this was, like, breaking her heart. Mickey's father, Theodore, also spoke to the court saying that he thinks about his daughter every day, that he often feels, it seems like he's disassociating a little bit. He seems like He says that he feels like he's in a dream, that this can't be real, that this can't be his real life, that he cannot believe that she's gone. And then he asked the judge to give Tony the maximum sentence. He said to the judge of Tony, quote, "I don't want nothing good for her, ever. That's what I say. That's what I want." Now, obviously, Tony's attorney wanted to explain how something like this could happen, but he couldn't really explain it because it shouldn't happen. He basically chalked it up to kids do dumb shit. Like, that's it. Kids do dumb shit. And apparently they had Tony, like, evaluated, right, when she was arrested, and that her mental and emotional maturity is that of a younger person. Basically, they said that though she was 19, she had that capacity, like the emotional and mental capacity of a 15-year-old, and that she was also abused by a controlling and possessive and overbearing boyfriend, and that that's why she did what she did. Even the judge was, like, dumbfounded as to why Tony was involved, like why she would do what she did. The judge was like, bro, like, you are a church girl from a good family with literally no criminal record. Why would you have done something like that? In the end, the judge sentenced Tony Fratto to 18 years with the chance of parole after 10. And this was the maximum penalty that he could give her that was allowed by law. The judge said to Tony, and I quote, "That's what makes this even more puzzling, that a person like you could participate in such a terrible crime. Micaela's loss to her family, to her school, to the community of Wendover will be felt forever. I hope that someday, Ms. Fratto, that you'll be able to get your life back in order. You have to live with this forever." Now, Tony did speak to the court. She addressed the court directly at her sentencing hearing, and she said, and I quote, "I would like to apologize for my actions and the tragedy that has happened. I know what I did was wrong. I'm sorry for what I did to Micaela and for what I did not do, protect her. It does not change what happened, but I do mean I'm sorry." Now, back to Cody. So Cody must have realized that his story of it being an accident sounded like bullshit, and now he knew that Tony, his love of his life, was going to testify against him. So he decided to change his plea, and he pled guilty to first-degree murder in exchange for the death penalty being taken off the table. And his attorney basically said that this was the, quote, sensible thing to do because it would be difficult to make it so Cody did not get the death penalty. They were like, this case is fucked, like he's fucked, we should probably do something so he doesn't die. With pleading guilty, his options for a sentence that he could receive were life in prison with parole, life in prison without parole, or 50 years in prison with the possibility of parole. He was also facing an additional 1 to 20 years added onto his sentence for the use of a deadly weapon. The courtroom was packed when Cody went in to try and make a case for himself as to why he should be granted parole. He spoke to the court, he spoke to Mickey's family, he begged for forgiveness. He said that what he did was horrible and unjustified and that nothing he could do could fix it, and that he was sorry for the unimaginable pain that he had caused. He also said that as he stood there looking out at everybody, he became more aware of how horrible a thing he did was, that her family didn't deserve to go through what they were going through, and that Mickey didn't deserve to go through what she had had to have gone through. And oh my God, okay, this part makes me so mad. So he went on to talk about how great Mickey was, which makes me annoyed. He went on to say how great she was, how she was a wonderful person, how she was the best friend that anyone could ask for. And then he had the audacity to read a poem that Mickey had written. Okay, this is to the court, this is in front of her family. He reads a quote that Mickey wrote, he reads a poem that Mickey wrote. And in this poem, she had written about like a glimmer of beauty beneath all the ugly in the world. And then he goes on to say like Mickey was that glimmer of beauty beneath all the ugly in the world. And this made her mother just hysterical. Mickey's family obviously gave their opinions on how Cody should be sentenced and what his punishment should be for what he did. And Mickey's mother said of this, and I quote, "This man should never see the light of day or be given the chance to see the light of day ever again. He took my daughter's life. He didn't give her a chance to finish high school or to get married or to have children or to go to college. He had no right to take her, so he has no right to have a life or have anything. He should never be free to do anything ever again." When Mickey's dad was asked like what he thought the sentencing should be, he basically said like, "I would like him to walk in and I would like him to leave. in a box. I guess that Cody, like, I don't know if this is mandatory, if it's something he did, but he wrote a letter to the judge, like, in his, you know, plea to not be given life forever, you know, with no parole. He wrote a letter to the judge, and in the letter, he denied killing Mickey. He was like, listen, I didn't kill her, I was there, but it was Tony who slit her throat. And basically the judge didn't believe him. The judge said, of this, and I quote, the evidence does not support your statement. I don't believe you. You were the primary perpetrator of the murder. In the end, the judge decided that the proper sentence would be life in prison with no possibility of parole. And Mickey's family was kind of shocked. Like, they hated him at this point, right? They wanted the worst for him. They were like, I wish you the fucking worst, you piece of shit. But at the same time, they were like, this is somebody we've known. This is somebody who is literally like family to us that we've watched grow up. And now they have no chance of ever having anything. He'll never have a life. He'll never have anything. But then again, neither will Mickey. When the judge gave Cody his sentence, he said specifically, and I quote, your blood runs cold, Mr. Patton. There shall be no possibility of parole. This judge then went on to say that in all the years, I think he said he had been on the bench for 20 years, this was the most violent murder he had ever seen, and that Mickey was the most innocent victim you could ever imagine. The judge did say that he considered Cody's young age when he decided what sentence he should get, because, you know, Cody was so young. His adult life had barely started when all this began. But the judge said that this murder and the viciousness of it outweighed his young age, essentially. The judge said that this murder was vicious and aggressive, and just, he said that Mickey suffered greatly when she was killed, and that it took her a long time to die. Which just made my heart really sad, like, to hear that, because you always hope that in these situations, like, the silver lining is that they didn't suffer, that it happened quickly. But the judge basically said in Mickey's case, that didn't happen, which makes my heart just fucking feel like it doesn't exist, quite frankly. Like, it feels like it's not even there. The judge said, quote, Micaela's sweet voice will never be heard again. Her sweet smile will never be seen again because of you, Mr. Patton. Your acts of planning this murder, carrying out this murder in such a vicious manner, and then attempting to cover up this murder are hardly the acts of an impulsive, irrational teenage mind. You always had the ability to stop the wheels of the murder you put into motion, Mr. Patton. After the hearing, everyone left, like Cody's family left, Mickey's family left, and nobody really said anything to the press, except for Mickey's mother, who simply said that justice was served. Now, why did this happen? That's really the question, isn't it? Like, it seems like so much information has been given, but that none of it is quite right, and that none of it really answers the question of why. Now, Dateline did do an interview with Tony, right? They sat down with her and they talked to her, and I did get to see a little bit of that. I guess Tony's mom was there because, again, she's super close with her family still, and Tony's mom was there, but she wasn't allowed to be in the room. She was, like, behind some two-way glass where she could see and hear them, but they couldn't see and hear her. And the interviewer asked her about the murder. They asked her about her diary and the jealousy and all of the things that came out. And Tony essentially said that it was blown out of proportion, that that's not how she felt about Mickey, that the passage in the diary was like just one passage about her jealousy towards Mickey, and that it was something that she wrote in the beginning of her and Cody's relationship, and they had been together a couple of years by that time, and that her feelings at the time of the murder were not accurately reflected by that older diary entry, and that she didn't have any hard feelings towards her, and that there was no jealousy there. She says that she didn't have anything to do with Cody's decision to murder Mickey, that she did not convince him or coerce him or give him an ultimatum. The interviewer asked her about that day in the desert and how she felt and what happened, and she said that thinking about it just makes her heart sink and that she feels like she can't breathe. But she did then admit that she hit Mickey with the shovel. She said she only did it because he told her to, that she didn't want to do it, that she didn't want to hurt Mickey, but he told her over and over to do it, so she did. But she says that she didn't cut or stab Mickey, that she didn't touch the knife at all. And she was asked, like, okay, then why did you say you did? You admitted at one point that you both cut her neck, that you both cut her throat. And she said that she couldn't explain why she did it, or why she admitted to it when she didn't do it, but that she didn't do it. And that when she made her original confession, she was just trying to help Cody, and she admitted to things that she did not do. And that basically now she would not take blame for things that she didn't do. So that's where she kind of stands on that. She then went on to explain that she's in an abusive relationship, and that when people are in abusive relationships, sometimes they're not thinking clearly, that they don't question their abusers on, the things that they do, the things that they say, because they don't want to be hurt again. And she said that she truly believes that if she did not help Cody, that she would have been killed herself as well. Her parents agree with her. They've come to terms with her involvement, as I said, but they think that she was a battered woman, and they go and they visit her in jail every Sunday after church. They go down there and visit her, and they say they're anticipating her release, that they're hoping that she can help people, that she can go on and help other people who were abused, and then, ironically, they hope that she can help people who are suffering from losing someone. Her mother has said that Tony only did what she did because she was afraid for her life, and she said specifically of this, and I quote, "She did not believe that she would ever see her family again. She knew her life was in danger. She knew Cody very well. We all knew Cody very well. She knew Cody, and she knew the frame of mind he was in that night. And she knew as soon as she got in the car, she told me, 'Mom, I knew I wasn't coming home.'" She adds that Tony is not a monster, that she's a girl who had a bright future and was an active member of her community and loved to volunteer, and that she just got involved with the wrong person, and in doing so, she ruined her own life. Tony says that she is remorseful, and she did apologize to Mickey's family, but then again, Cody apologized to Mickey's family too. They always they don't always apologize. A lot of them apologize, but to me, I've said this before, these apologies kind of mean shit, because your apology isn't going to bring their kid back, But I'm sure it brings something to someone, so sure, I guess. And Tony did apologize to Mickey's family, saying, and I quote, "I know sorry's not enough. If I could go back, I would, and protect her, and make sure that this wouldn't happen and everything, that she'd still be here today." And to this day, Tony hasn't changed her statement, even when she was confronted with the diary, and even when she was confronted with Cody's sworn statement. You remember how I said that Cody was about to take the plea deal, he accepted the plea deal and he was writing a sworn statement, but then he changed his mind and he backed out. Well, the sworn statement was still in his file, and it was found, I believe it was by the Dateline interview person, right? Because I listened to the Dateline, I partook and said media, okay, cool, and in this sworn statement, it gave a little more information, a little more of what might have been why this happened. Cody wrote in this statement that the day of Mickey's murder, Mickey and Tony had gotten to a little bit of a fight, that there had been a confrontation. I guess Mickey had been walking down the hall in one direction, Tony in the other, and Tony started talking shit to her, or rather talking shit at her as she walked by. It was like, "Oh, look at that slut, there goes the slut," and that the two started to fight. And that Cody ended up getting in between them and breaking it up and was like, "Yo, this needs to stop. This is too much. This is ridiculous. You guys need to get over this." And he says at that point, the girls decided that they either needed to talk it out or fight it out. And that's why Mickey went with him that day, because she was going to get together with him and with Tony after school so that they could squash their beef. It's always sunny in Philadelphia style. And he says that he then went. He picked up Mickey. He picked up Tony. They headed to the gravel pits. And that's where that story ended, because he changed his mind and he didn't write any more of his statement. Mickey's family doesn't really believe that portion of the story, though, because they don't believe that Mickey would have gone with Cody voluntarily, because they said that ever since Cody and Tony had started dating, that Cody wasn't as nice to her. He was kind of being a dick to her. He was playing pranks on her. He was being somebody that she didn't like to be around. So they didn't think that she would want to go hang out with him, because she had just been distancing herself. She wasn't into him as a friend as much anymore. And they also think that the whole thing was very strategic, because that statement implies that it wasn't planned, right? They believe it was strategic because this was the one day that Mickey was not getting a ride, the one day that Christina was in Vegas and Mom was in work and she'd have to walk home. There is one other theory that could explain the why, and this is that Tony believed that Mickey and Cody were having an affair, because essentially it turns out Cody was having an affair. So when I say he loved Tony, but in his own weird way, he was having an affair. You remember the woman that he borrowed the SUV from, the mom with the basketball game and all that? Apparently he was having an affair with her. And it's thought that maybe Tony could sense with her womanly instincts that her fiance was having an affair and just assumed it was Mickey. But who's to say? So what really happened that day? I don't know. There are so many different stories. None of them seem to tell everything, but they all seem to tell a little bit. And these are just the stories that I covered with you today. Apparently, when Tony admitted what she did to Cody's dad, there was even another differing account of that day. So what happened? Who was the aggressor? Those are the things that are elusive. It seems like it was Cody who arranged for it to happen. He's the one who got the car. He's the one who got the shovel. He got the items for it to take place. But it seems like Tony had the stronger motive to want Mickey gone. So that's what we're left with. And then we're left with 3 families who have lost their kids. Obviously, Mickey's family is getting the worst of it because their child is actually dead. Like, there's no questioning that. But I do still feel I always feel for the parents of killers as well as, robot backwards. Only if their parents aren't proven dickheads, right? Like, if they're proven dickheads, I have less sympathy, but that hasn't been the case in these 2 families from what I've seen. So it just makes me sad because it has to be so hard to know that your child did something like this. I can't imagine living with that and wondering what I did wrong, what I could have done differently. And then having to compartmentalize that with still loving them, it seems like a lot. And it seems like it's so stupid to think of your kid doing all of this for a love that didn't even last. Because Tony and Cody haven't even spoken since they were arrested. It just ended. The whole relationship ended. So all of that for literally nothing. Now, let's do a little Where Are They Today segment, because there are some updates on this. Tony Frados, she was eligible for parole in 2021, last year. And she did appear before the Nevada Parole Board by video conference in February. But her parole, thankfully, or not thankfully, depending on where you fall on this, was denied. Now, for reference, even if she had been paroled, she wouldn't have been released right then, because you remember that her and Cody were both given that additional 8 to 10 years for the weapons enhancement. Remember, like the deadly weapon enhancement? Basically, that sentence is to run consecutively after her second-degree murder sentence. Okay, I've got this. This math is going to work. So she would have to serve her sentence for the second-degree murder. If she gets paroled for that, she then has to immediately begin her 8 to 10 years for the weapons enhancement. So, yes, that made sense. I did good. Great. But anyways, it doesn't matter because it was denied, and her next parole hearing is in May of 2024. Now, as far as Cody goes, Cody got married in prison. Apparently, he met a nice girl from Utah named Amanda, and the two got married, which seems pointless because, okay, at this particular, it's either in Nevada, who am I? Nevada. Okay, in Nevada or in this particular prison, like conjugal visits are not a thing, so I don't know what they're getting out of this relationship, right? Like they can't do what they do. I guess he'll get some letters and they can have a long distance love. That is a real thing. I guess the heart wants what the heart wants. And her heart apparently wants some dumb ass murdering dickhead. So, now as they always do, Cody did try to appeal. I guess he wanted to try to be able to see and have a conjugal visit with his wife, you know what I mean, and get out. In his appeal, he stated that his counsel was ineffective for failing to investigate whether or not he had offered a false confession in order to protect Tony. So basically, he was like, listen, maybe I lied to protect Tony. Maybe I wasn't even there. Maybe I said A, B, and C so that she could be free. You get it? Cool. But the appeal was unsuccessful because essentially the court was like, listen, you benefited greatly from the plea deal that your attorney arranged because had he not arranged this, you could have been killed. So no, you're going to be hanging tight in jail. Thanks, but no thanks. Now, back to Mickey. Mickey has been remembered in many different ways from those who loved her. At her school, they retired her jersey, so I guess that means like no one else is going to wear that number. And her friends, her classmates, went on to paint this like giant rock as a memorial to her. Every year on the anniversary of Mickey's death also, her friends get together and they release green balloons. I guess green must have been her favorite color. I didn't see that stated anywhere, but generally the balloon color is the person's favorite color. And they write letters to her. And they have little cupcakes, and they just try to remember and celebrate Mickey. Mickey was buried in a family cemetery at her family's ranch, a place that her family says was like home to her. And Mickey was buried next to her grandfather in a place that her mother says is the most beautiful place in the world. And now, with that sad but peaceful close, that, my friends, was the story of the murder of Mickie Costanzo. And now that I've given you all the information, first let's take a collective breath because it's so fucking sad. But now I want you to revisit the question of the day, and that is this. What do you think the motive was for murdering Mickey? And who do you think was the mastermind behind the entire plan? Please let me know all of your thoughts, because I know there will be a lot, in the comments below. But anyways, guys, that completes this video. I hope you found it interesting and informative, and it gave you all of the information you would want when looking into this case. Katie, I hope I did it justice. And of course, I want to thank you all for remembering Mickey with me today. Don't forget to let me know down below of any cases you'd like to see me cover in the future, as this case shows. If you leave me a suggestion, I will try to get to it. I have a really long list of cases, and anytime you leave a suggestion, I put it on my list with your name next to it so I can give you a shout out, because I know you're filled with good ideas and good taste. Otherwise, you would not be here. And I'm especially interested in covering your guys' hometown cases like this. I find that to be, I don't know, not satisfying. Maybe it's satisfying. It's just, I think that sometimes cases don't get the coverage that they should because they are from places that don't get the national attention that other places get. Do you know what I mean? And if you tell me about your hometown cases, I can bring light to cases that don't normally get that light. So that's kind of what I mean. So if you have any hometown cases specifically, please let me know that down below. Of course, if you haven't already, please don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you. And if you want to hang out more consistently, all my social media is listed down below, along with a link to my merch store. This is not my merch, this is Bo Burnham's merch, but there's also a link to my membership. If you want to join that, you can get early access to non-sponsored videos, polls, live streams when my baby allows it, things like that. And now with all of that said, I want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. Please stay safe and be a better person than you were yesterday, and I hope to see you in my next video.